Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
It is 6:07. I will now call the May Portsmouth Crime and Gun Violence Prevention Task Force work session meeting into session. With that, I'll start with the roll, and I'll start by asking for Ms. Sessoms to say your name, and then we'll go around the room.
Okay, sure. Not a problem at all. Leticia Sessoms.
George DeGroot.
Sarah Ray.
Eugene Swenson.
Keith Rice.
Sheree Pitino.
All right, Jalen Drury. Thank you, everyone. Ms. Matthews is not here tonight. She is dealing with some sinus issues, just like most of us. And so we will wish her well, and we'll continue on with the meeting. Next, I will ask for the approval of the April 21st meeting minutes.
Motion to accept the April 21st meeting minutes as written.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next, the adoption of tonight's agenda as written. Actually, I'm going to ask if we could, if it's okay with everyone, if we could move the announcements to the top of the agenda, if that's okay with everyone, and we'll approve that. Do we have a motion to approve that?
Motion to approve moving the announcement to the top of the agenda.
Yes. Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right. And with that, I'll start with the announcement. So the next meeting is scheduled for June 3rd. I spoke with Ms. Matthews, and we talked about it. We also have a joint city council and commission meeting on June 9th. She thought it would be a good idea if we were to table the June 3rd meeting and just meet on June 9th. We also, which I'll get to in a moment, we have a report that is due to City Council this month. And so I think if we were to take the rest of this month and the first week in June to work on that and get that to City Council and make sure we're prepared for the June 9th meeting, if it's okay with everyone, I would like to table the June 3rd meeting to prepare for the June 9th. Any comments on that? All right, great. And I don't think, according to Ms. Matthews, I don't need a motion to do that. And so we'll just move past that. There was another announcement, and she just sent it over to me before I walked in. And maybe Councilman Hugo can speak to this as well. So JLARC, the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission, will be visiting Portsmouth in July. Right now it's slated for July 9th and 10th. She'll be sending out information about that. She told us to stay tuned. They may want to engage with the commission if they were to come here. And so she just wanted to put that announcement out there. Councilman Hugo, if you can speak to that a little bit more about what that could look like, if you can.
You know more than I do about it.
Okay, great. All right. With that, we'll move past that. If there are any questions, please refer them to Ms. Matthews. She said she will provide an update to us via email of what that would look like in their engagement with the commission if they are slated to come still in July. But I wanted to give that announcement just in case. And a reminder, the June 9th joint meeting here with City Council is scheduled for that Monday at 6 p.m. 5:30 p.m. All right, thank you, Councilman. Moving on with the agenda to our discussion items. We have 3 discussion items tonight. I'm going to start off with committee alignment. In our previous meeting in April, we had some conversation about making sure that our committees are working together outside of this space, making sure that the Community Engagement Committee, the Resource Allocation Committee, and the rest of our committees are working together to make sure the work is being done. I think one of the main things that I pointed out was ensuring that as I'm finding resources for the community, that we're putting the resources out there, right? And so I want to make sure that we're in alignment, and also figuring out the rest of the ways that we can be in alignment as committees as well. So I'm not sure if anyone had any thoughts on that with where we are in terms of committees and what that can look like going forward. So I'll open it up to the floor.
I mean, the only question I had, I know I was on the community engagement committee, and it was a report that I just, you know what I'm saying, like, how are we communicating the report? Like, who do we talk to? Am I going to talk to somebody by myself? Are we going together? Are we going to civic league meetings? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I asked them I mean, he's not here today, so I hate to keep bringing him up, but I asked him probably 2 meetings ago, hey, let me know I'm ready. Whenever you're ready, let's come up with something where, even if we go separately, like, hey, I'll take these 2 civic leads, or I'll go to this neighborhood, and then we come back with the information, but I guess it was a communication gap, so. And then, of course, I came back, and there was a report. It's like,
Ms. Patilla.
I was just gonna say, I think maybe you should just start.
right.
Whatever you feel like, if you feel like you can communicate with people that can help push the work of the committee forward, I think that you should do that. I don't know if everyone else is in agreement.
I just didn't want to overlap. Like, we don't want to be going to the same places.
I think that you should attempt to reestablish communication with him again. 'Cause
Right.
You said it was 2 meetings ago, because, you know, everybody is doing something.
No, for sure,
He had a lot
for sure.
going on. I wouldn't, you know, like,
Just bypass it, right.
overstep.
Right.
You know, I mean, James probably wouldn't mind at all, but just
Right.
out of respect for everybody's position, I would just try to reach out again.
Yeah, and I think there's an understanding that everybody's going to do their part anyways.
Right.
And that we all have connections within the community, right?
Right.
And so I think that would be okay. But like you said, Ms. Sessoms, I definitely would recommend we try to make that
Yeah,
connection
and the contact
established.
would basically be like, hey, I'm
This is
over
what I'm
here
gonna do.
doing
Yeah.
such and such, and we over, you know what I'm saying? Like,
That's
you
what
don't
I'm
want
saying. I'm
to.
just saying, if it's the communication's becoming difficult, don't let that be a barrier to you moving the.
No,
work
it was
forward.
only once.
Yeah,
I only
like
said something
stepping
one time, and
toes or
then,
going over anybody. Yeah.
like I said, and then, you know.
Yeah.
If memory serves me, there was conversation about scheduling monthly meetings
Right.
sort of across the city and having those in different places. So I absolutely hear what Ms. Sessoms is saying, and maybe that would be a helpful way to be helpful, like to say, hey, look, these places are good, you know, like present a tentative agenda
Right.
to some of those places, and that way it could just, the rest of the committee could plug in the rest of theirs. Because I would like, if I remember correctly, and someone please check me if I don't have it right, that was gonna be pushed out, all of those meetings were gonna be pushed out so that the community knew where
Right.
they were held.
And the subcommittees were supposed to meet separately outside of this,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be a helpful, you know, sort of a gentle prompt and helpful way to say,
Right.
hey, look, this is partially in place. And
Yeah, I think to that point, I was actually going to bring that back up during our next discussion item on public comment, because I think that is a key part that you mentioned of making sure that we're in the community, and that we're going to the different parts of the community, and it would take for the community engagement committee to do the work and figure out what that looks like with us, right? And so I'll make sure I circle back to that in the next discussion item. But it's still in terms of committee alignment, we've been meeting for 6 months, 7 months now going on. We have a joint meeting with City Council next month. We have a report due this month. And I want to make sure that we are still working towards our goals of whatever that looks like, of putting together a joint strategic plan for crime reduction in the city, continuing to do the work while we're doing that, but making sure that our committees are aware of what that work is supposed to look like outside of this space. I think our last meeting was really productive.
Oh, it was really good.
It was really productive, and we came back with reports and things that we worked on. And so I think if we continue with that work that we did back in March and April, and do that in May and June, I think we'll be successful. But we may need to have a discussion about what those goals are again, so that the committees know what their work is supposed to look like.
Yeah, so I was gonna say that. I think that we should flesh that out and kind of do a state of the committee amongst ourselves, so that we are in preparation for what everybody has done and is doing. I know I submitted a report, my first report last meeting. I wasn't here, and I see that a lot of other people did. But if we can kind of compile something like that and have it in preparation along with the report of this is what we're doing looks like, a deliverable for what has been done thus far and what the plan is moving forward in alignment with the goals, to make sure we stay in alignment with those goals and we're not just doing stuff.
Yeah, because the work that we're doing as committees should be in line with our ultimate goal. And I think we mentioned earlier on, and our city manager mentioned that we were going to have someone come in and help us with the work. That hasn't happened yet, but I don't think the work is supposed to stop because it hasn't happened. I think we're supposed to keep going. And whenever that happens, if it does happen, then they'll just jump in with wherever we are. But to your point, Ms. Patillo, I think that with this report that we're supposed to submit to City Council, it may be best if that report compiles the work that the committees have done so far and where the committees plan to go going forward. And we can put all of those reports together and provide them to City Council later on this month ahead of that joint meeting in June, if that makes sense for everybody.
It does. May I ask a question, though? Because
Yes.
I need a refresher sometimes.
Yes.
The goal of the report to City Council is not specifically for us to report out on what we've done, but to identify goals. Is that right? I have to go back and look at the email.
I would have to go back and look at the bylaws because the bylaws
That's right.
specifically says what that report is for. I'm not sure if anybody has some list. I don't have it in this.
Sometimes I just need to recalibrate.
That's crazy.
We can table that and come back to it. I just wanted to make sure
Okay,
that as
I'll
we were
find it.
talking about it.
Thank you. But that's a great point because we want to make sure that report is capturing what's necessary, but also what we've been doing because we have done made some strides in the last month or two. So we want to make sure we're capturing it.
Okay, I have it. So, Article 5, accountability and reporting, the City Council report, quarterly report on progress towards violence reduction goals, updates on initiatives and partnerships, data on violent crimes and statistics and intervention outcomes, and recommendations for adjustment to the violence prevention plan. Then we have a responsibility to report to the public as well, and then a self-evaluation. So maybe revisit the bylaws, review over these things, and make sure we check them off in preparation for the joint meeting.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other comments about committee alignment? I want to make sure I hear from everybody and make space for everybody.
How many committees are there?
4.
It's 4.
Is it 4? Correct. 4. Yes, and I apologize at the top. I did not take some time to introduce our new member of the task force. If you would like to introduce yourself, please do. I apologize.
Hey, hello everybody. Now you good? I'm George. I got the call and I'm ready to serve, so I'm not gonna be long.
Thank you.
Interrupted me.
Yeah, I'm used to just jumping right in, so I appreciate that.
That's fine.
And so yes, there are four committees, and we have been tasked with every month meeting outside of this space to do the work in those committees. Last month, a few of our committees submitted reports, and our last meeting was really productive, talking about what the work looked like going over the last couple of months. And so as we head into June, I'm hopeful that we can continue doing that work, and all of our committees could meet before that joint City Council and Commission meeting, because we have about a month until then. And so I would hope that those committees could meet. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Cullen isn't here, but there are some things that you've talked about that he needs to know about. So who's going to follow up with Mr. Cullen?
I'm gonna call him.
You are?
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I was gonna get his up before. I'm gonna call him.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll call him.
All right, the next agenda item is that the public comment policy was still falls under the Community Engagement Committee and with Mr. Cullen. He took some time, a lot of time actually, working on that community public comment policy that was put together back in February. We discussed it at a work session back in February as well, and we decided to table that for now as we were still getting the working and operations of this task force underway. But I think it is time to review that and bring that back to the table and see what it looks like to engage with the public as we're 6 months into this work. And so I'll leave it there and see what thoughts are on public comment right now.
I feel like we should definitely bring it to the forefront. Have not really heard anything from the public outside of city council meetings, but to get some voice or reasoning from the public, I think would be great for all of us.
I I could be persuaded either way. I do have concerns. These meetings sometimes tend to be long, and I would like to make sure that as we're together, we're using our time wisely. So if we are to the point where there will be monthly community engagement meetings where at least some of the members are present, that would be, in my mind, an appropriate place to gather public comment that we could then address here. I don't know if that falls within the operating procedures for a committee or, for this commission. But I would like to make sure that when we're in this room that we're able to use the time wisely. And so if there is a reason for public comment here, we would have to obviously put some parameters in place. But I feel like that would be the whole point of the community engagement process, is to
I
hear
thought so too.
from the public. And then that information would come back and could be addressed in a public forum in this room. I don't know what everyone else's opinion is, though.
I think that we kind of discussed this before, but I'm for it. I'm similar to Ms. Ray, as long as there are parameters as to what is being discussed, because in working with the public and municipalities and the state for a long time, people will use any platform they can to talk about anything they want to. Right. And so they have to know what they're coming here to talk about. Are they talking about what we're doing? Are they giving us suggestions? Are they giving feedback on the meeting? They also have a city council meeting where they can speak. Yeah. So as long as we have guidelines and a policy in place and the public is aware of the policy, then I'm okay. But then also, how much time are we allotting? Is it one person per meeting? Is it 20 minutes? Is it 40 minutes? Because we don't have a lot of time. So I think that, like Ms. Ray said, having either a portal, like I think we previously discussed, or a time where people link up somehow, some way with community engagement and then get those things back to us, and then we have a space in the meeting where we say, okay, we have 5 public comments today, here's how we will address them, or something of that nature.
I was going to say, but when we get some of that feedback from the city council meetings, like if we attended, not per se all of us, but if we attended these meetings or even watched them on YouTube, some of these comments that you're looking for from the public gonna be right there, and you're gonna get the candid questions that might cause a problem in a small setting like this, where we can just kind of get the feedback from there. But I do agree with taking this stuff to these neighborhoods, getting feedback that way, and bringing it back. Now, if you want to bring somebody from that particular neighborhood to maybe want to come in front of everybody, maybe a representative for that neighborhood, a representative for that group of people, then that might be better than just saying free for all, everybody come out and trying to hope they ask questions in line with what we want them to ask versus them just making it a show.
So to that point you mentioned about the city council, folks come and speak every time they have a meeting. And I think it's fair to expect that Councilman Hugo and Councilman Tillis would bring it back to us as the city council liaisons if there's something pertinent related to the commission or crime reduction, right? And so I think that's
covered.
Yeah, I think that's a fair expectation of our liaisons. But similar to Ms. Ray and Ms. Patillo, I feel like we should be in the community. Yes. And we said that earlier on. And it may be best, and I think Councilman Tillett spoke to this earlier on as well, is it may be best for us to leave this setting for us to take care of the business of the commission, voting, providing updates on the committees, but going into the community throughout the month, whether through the committees or other scheduled meetings that we'll have, to have whether it's listening sessions or just hearing from certain sectors of Portsmouth on their thoughts of crime reduction, ideas, whatever it is. And to your point, we can't control what they're going to say. And I don't think personally, I don't think we should.
Yeah, we shouldn't, right.
Right? But I think we should allocate space just for that. And this space should be for us to do the business and the work of this task force, because these meetings run long typically on a regular anyways, and we don't want to set aside the business and not be able to get anything done because we have public comment.
Do you think, I know I keep saying civic leagues, but even contacting the civic leagues getting us as an agenda for their
That's a
meeting.
start.
You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, they know we're coming this specific day, and we're on their agenda, so
Or
you get
even
all the,
having a community feedback meeting.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
the community engagement committee having, like when they were getting ready to build the tide, or when they're doing the tunnel, or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever subject is going on, they usually do a community feedback meeting where they do a presentation and say, hey, we're the committee, we're the commission, this is what we do. We're coming to you to get feedback, and
Right.
that particular meeting be just for that, and then you come back and report for maybe people who can't get to city council or
Right.
can't come to these meetings.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, but like you said, starting off with something that's already established, which are those meetings, civic league meetings, we can go there.
especially the ones that have their civic leagues together. Like, all the neighborhoods don't have civic leagues or representation. We spoke about that. But the ones that do, we could start there and definitely get on their agenda to go in there and take whatever questions they have or suggestions they want us to bring back. I think that would be. I wanted to come up with some type of questionnaire or something that, like you said, maybe a portal or something where they can just hit the link, and the questions that we want asked, we can actually put them in there and get feedback from those also. I think it'd be easy to get a lot. We can do all of it. We don't just gotta, we can just do all of it. Like, it don't have to be one specific thing. I think all of it would garner all the information that we're looking for. So,
Like I said, a lot of this falls under the community engagement committee.
Right.
And Mr. Cullen is not here. Many of us will go back and have that discussion with him, and Ms. Matthews will provide a report, meeting minutes to discuss what we discussed here today. But we also know sometimes a lot of things get stuck in committee and don't come out of committee.
Right.
And so we want to make sure that, we said this back in December, we said this in January, that a lot of this work we're doing is going to fall under community engagement, and it can't just fall on Mr. Cullen. And so it's going to take for all of us to do the work with him and the committee to ensure that what we're looking to do is getting done. And so I'll charge all of us to make sure that we're following up and asking those questions and pushing so we can get those things done.
Well, and if
Yes.
I might add, I'm sorry, that I think all of those forums are really good, but I also know that I'm in the community a lot,
Yeah.
in places where I'm interacting with folks of various backgrounds, and I always make sure that I'm asking those questions. I'm always checking in, at the Peace Fest concert and at places where, I might have the opportunity. So I also think that while it's important that as the committee and as we as a group do that work, some of us are able to do that in our own places and collect that data and send it back. So I just sort of wanted to put that out there. I view myself sort of as a liaison between a couple of entities. And that's easy. I think I've seen Mr. Rice out at play. I've seen everybody out in places, right? But as individuals, we could also be collecting information to make sure that it's being addressed.
Absolutely.
To piggyback on what most of everybody has said, I just don't feel like we're ready to bring people into our space yet.
Right.
I think the same place we were in when we voted on, like, having people to come and speak, we're in that same place. Still a little confusion, still a little uncertainty. We're getting there,
Yeah.
but I do absolutely think that we should go community. In particular, the Civic League meetings, but also the other communities, like from our
but like you said,
high-risk
yeah.
areas
Yeah.
that,
But some of that stuff we know,
Yeah.
because you there, you kind of
Yeah.
know what they're lacking and what's happening out there. Like you said, it's just a matter of just adding it to the information that we get from the neighborhoods that's got representation.
Well, I'm curious, Ms. Sessoms, if you believe that us going into the community would help us get to the place that we need to, because that's the way that I see it.
Yes.
And I think that us getting that feedback directly from the community could provide that advisory for us on where we should go, right? Because there's only so much that we could come up with without hearing directly from folks.
yeah. And it also sets us apart too, because a lot of entities are not able to like go
Yeah.
community. So, balance is community, so we got to go to where they are.
Sure.
And not have as many barriers, transportation, whatever it is that will prohibit them from coming here.
Yeah.
In addition to us not being ready, we want to eliminate those as much as possible. So I always like the idea of going sit down.
I agree. Okay. I mentioned it several times. There are so many examples of what and how to go about this. Baltimore, Chicago, Roanoke. And so I would implore us to continue to look at those examples because Baltimore has done a great job at figuring out how to engage with the community. And there's some things that we can take away from that, I believe, so that we're not just constantly reinventing something, but that we can borrow from other cities that have done a great job at it. So.
And also the Bloomberg study, it
Yes.
has a lot of critical
It does.
information in it that we don't even have to
Yeah.
maybe like a little refresher, but
Right.
not like reinvent the wheel. It's already there, so we take data from there and then take that out.
Absolutely. You also mentioned something, Ms. Sessoms, about, I think the point I made in February is that the way we started off as a task force and as a commission, there was some confusion there about the way this body is supposed to work. Is this a working group? Is this an advisory board? What does this look like? And I think, and this is my personal opinion, that will come up in future meetings if some questions aren't answered, if everybody isn't on the same page. I believe most of us are, but I believe at the joint council meeting that may be a thing of concern that we should bring up and have that discussion with city council. And we have our liaisons, they join us and they've been great at answering our questions and making sure we're taken care of, but I'm sure that would be a place to bring that up with those questions that we may still have about what this looks like to continue this work, and what the expectation is, because we have our liaisons and they've answered our questions, but I don't know if everybody would be on the same page of what the expectation is of this body to do that work.
I
Yes, sir.
think while we
Yes.
have what to
June 9th.
yes. So while we have Councilman Hugel here tonight, we can again revisit that because in my mind, they've done a great job with explaining to us what the expectation is of us. So I don't want to go in front of and not we haven't been told, we're confused, because we are to some level of it, but I think we have some level of understanding of what our role is. So I would pass the torch on over to you so
Okay.
that you can tell us and we can digest what our role is, what the expectation is. And that could better help us to prepare for June 9th and also our report.
Okay, well, so the bylaws, I think, have done a good job of describing what you're supposed to do and also have described organizationally how to attack it. Okay, so we've talked about before, and I think you all have said it already. The hope is that this meeting is a oversight of the work that's being done in the committees, but the real work of this group is going to happen at the committee level. And so explaining to the city council what you understand your assignment to be from the bylaws, the organizational structure that you have in place. I'm not sure that everybody on city council has even read your bylaws. Okay, and so making sure that the city council knows what the structure is that you're working to, and then given a summary of what each of those committees has taken aboard as the work that they want to do. I mean, the Community Engagement Committee, you all have said it tonight, it's a pretty important source of insight from the community. And so what are you doing to get out there and engage the community? I don't think it's wrong to not have public comment here.
Okay, good.
I think it's right to not have public comment here. as someone who goes to meetings every 2 weeks where anybody can come and talk about anything within the rules, well, if you watch city council meetings, we're way outside the rules a lot. And so you can put as many rules in place as you want to, and when you invite somebody to come in, and you got no real control over what they decide that they want to talk about, and then you as the chair and the rest of you supporting the chair have to decide, okay, do we want to be jerks and cut this person off? Because I can tell you, sitting up on the dais at city council, when somebody gets cut off, the rumbling around town is those jerks on city council wouldn't let that person air their grievance, even though their grievance maybe had nothing to do with anything city council could do about it. So you invite that in, and then you take the consequences for extending that invitation. Again, I think council is interested to hear what's the structure, what are those committees doing, how are we building on work that's already been done before. So the fact that you've gone back and visited the Bloomberg Harvard study so that we know that we're not starting from ground zero, that there's work already done that you can build upon. To know that you've had the health department come in and do a soup to nuts on the health assessment that they've done for the city. So again, you're not starting from a blank sheet of paper. You've already invited folks that have been working in this space to come in and fill you in on the insights that they've gained, so that you can build on that work. But the key really is, how do you use the committees to build on that work? What are each of the committees, and frankly, have the committees set goals for themselves for what they're trying to accomplish to achieve the mission that you all have assigned yourselves inside the bylaws. So, yeah, I think, and then I'll share the other thing, that this is an opportunity for you all to ask for help. Okay, so we still don't have a consultant sitting here whispering in your ears, these are some things that you ought to be thinking about that have worked in other places. Y'all are doing that work yourselves, but we told you from the outset we wanted to provide you with a consultant. We haven't given that person to you yet. If I were you, I wouldn't be afraid to come to city council and say, hey, so before we get off the stage, there's one or two things that you could help us with. Providing the consultant would be one, and then if there are other things that you think city council owes you, then that's the opportunity to don't leave the stage without taking the opportunity to ask your ask. So that's kind of how I see how that session would go. And hopefully that's answered your question.
It did. I took some notes while you were talking, but basically what I gather is the oversight of the work that's being done in the committees. And then he just answered that part, but I had absent of the consultant. That was like the part for me that was a little confusing, because we were told that we would have a consultant initially, and then it has not happened. And I know, like, for 3 months we was all looking like, what are we supposed to be doing? And then they came in and talked to us a little bit more in depth. I think was one meeting, we was like, oh, we feel better. We got a clear understanding of what our role is and how we're supposed to carry it out. And then I think we just kind of, because we still don't have a consultant, we still haven't had like our meetings as planned or as we supposed to. But the expectation is to still get the work done. So I think now Did that answer the question for everybody?
Yeah, I understand. So I have a question. So, okay, we don't want to, we kind of all agree we don't want, but it probably wouldn't be smart right now to bring just people in asking questions, right?
To this meeting.
To this meeting. So what about the community groups that are working in those meetings? I mean, that are working in those neighborhoods? Like the neighborhoods that don't have a civic league, there's probably a community outreach group that's out there working in that neighborhood. Would y'all be more comfortable inviting those people?
But why are we inviting them? That's what I'm asking.
The same reason they invite the public, to kind of get a gauge on that neighborhood based off of somebody that's, I mean, we can answer some of those questions because some of the
So
neighborhoods.
my
that I'm
advice
speaking
to you
about,
is
yeah.
go to
Go
them.
do that. Yeah, go
Go
out.
to that.
Go to them.
Because we don't have.
Go to the civic, so to your earlier point, if you contact the Civic League chairs, presidents, and tell them, hey, I'm from the crime task force and we're interested in sharing what the crime task force is up to and also getting feedback from your Civic League, there ain't a Civic League president out there that's going to say no.
Right.
Because they'd be delighted to have you all show up and come talk to them, and that's a great place to get feedback. I'll share something else. So, how many of you think you're known in the community for being on the task force? Now, here's why I'm asking. Okay, so when I go to a restaurant and I'm eating dinner with my wife, you think if somebody walks past me and they say, oh, there's a city councilman, you think they just keep walking? No. 9 times out of 10, they'll come by and say, can I get just a minute of your time to talk a little business? Well, you all want to have that same kind of connection so that when people walk past you, they say, are you on the crime task force? Hey, so, I heard car engines revving at Churchland Shopping Center the other night. Can you tell me what are we doing about that? Well, I got that question, but I want you guys to get that question, and so I think one of the things that maybe this group needs to wrestle with is how do you get the story out there that you're interested in getting that kind of feedback. Now, you don't want them to stop and interrupt your dinner at a restaurant, okay? I can promise you that. But going places and identifying yourself as a member of the task force and being receptive to getting that kind of feedback, way more important than inviting folks into these meetings where you give up control, basically.
I received that, Councilman. I think that's a great point. The name, image, and likeness of the folks in this room should be, known and pertinent in the city, especially with this work, us being 6 months into this work, and continuing to push forward. But I think to what I spoke to the last meeting 2 weeks ago with the chief is that we also have to be innovative in how we're communicating what we're doing in here. Yes, we should be out there in person, letting people know what's happening, and I know all of you are doing that because I've seen it, but what else are we doing digitally on social media? And I'm going to keep pushing that because that's where the people are, and that's what they're doing in other cities. And so how can we match that to meet them where they are, not just at the Civic League meetings and community meetings, but on Facebook, on Instagram, and the rest of the platforms that they're on, and email and digital. And there's platforms that we can already use. The city Instagram account, they post on there every single day. The Facebook account, they post on there every single day. And so how can we do that to get out the word that this commission exists, for one, but there's other work that could be done, and that we can work with the community to get done. Are there any more thoughts on public comment? Again, this isn't a voting session, this is a work session, and so this is why I'm just pushing through this, and then we can circle back. Are there any other thoughts on public comment?
Should we have, not on public comment, but on what you just said though, but should we have a social media page? Did we talk about that?
We didn't talk about that, and the way I see it, I don't think we should have a
use our
separate
own.
page, because if you look at other cities,
They don't.
their task force and their commission utilizes the city's police department and the city's social media presence that already has a large presence anyways. I think that makes sense. But I think it's really working with the community engagement committee and us as a whole to figure out, okay, what should be put out there? You know, is it the committee meetings, right? The times that the committees are meeting? Is it what we're looking for in the committees? The goals? Our ultimate goal as a task force, like what should we put out there, and we have to sit down and figure that out and come to agreement. I don't think that should just be on one person or just on one committee. I think all of us should work on that. So yeah,
Well, if we have ideas, not to go too deep into that, but if we
I have ideas.
get together and talk about that,
Ideas.
I definitely have ideas as well. I'm also a graphic designer, so I don't mind making the post and making a presence that looks uniform. And maybe if those can be submitted to one of the city's social media sites to be inserted in, like, these are our meetings. This is a bullet points of what we talked about this meeting. This is whatever. I'm definitely down to help with that as well.
So I would point you all to Peter Glagola, who is the marketing director for the city.
Yeah, we have his card.
Yeah, so he owns the city social media stuff.
Okay.
So if you've got things that you want to get pushed out on the city social media page, Peter's the point of contact. And Melissa Jenkins is I think the point of contact for the police department.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
You know,
Or actually, Chantel is probably the best point of contact to work through to get to the PPD page.
I always love to summarize. That's my counseling background. So
We appreciate
I
it.
appreciate that.
So I think everyone was in agreement that we would not entertain public comment at these meetings,
Yes.
but that we would work diligently to get the meetings in the community where we could get feedback from the community. So the first action item would be, I know you said you were going to potentially put together some things. What I remember was that each month there was going to be a meeting at a different place in the community. And we would invite as many of us or as many people from the community engagement group to be there to sort of hold a public information session or gather information.
Yeah.
So that would be the first action item, is to sort of get that schedule created. And then in my mind, if, as much as I hate Canva, if there's someone who can create that stuff and push it out on social media, that makes the most sense to me. So that was the sort of the first thing.
Yes.
I think
That's
the first thing, though, should be the Civic League thing.
Yes,
Because that's
yes.
creating a new thing. And before we do that, we need to just go to what's already established. So
There are more than 30 of them
That's what I
that
was
are
gonna say,
active.
there's a million.
where are they?
Okay.
I was a neighborhood development specialist in Norfolk. You can come and talk about anything. I can say there's a new cheese at Publix and they want to hear it. So I would say connect with them as the community committee. Yeah, connect with them, go speak to them first, and then if we do plan something further down the line, it'll be probably more well attended.
Right.
Or it could just be a thing where every month we go to the city, go to a Civic League meeting and have a discussion, or it could be a standing agenda item. For me, I was standing on every Civic League in my area.
Right.
So there were 7 areas, and I had this particular area, and I went to a different Civic League meeting every week. So that can be a thing that somebody does, or you all alternate doing. And then if we deem that we need to create a meeting specifically for feedback, I think that would be secondary.
So
that
do you
makes
think
sense.
when we get on the agendas for the Civic League, do we need to tell, and the only reason why I say this, because some of the Civic League meetings I went to, it's only a certain age group there. Like, so the whole, like, everybody, all age groups not at the Civic League meeting, it's mostly
The elderly.
the older people are at the Civic League meeting, so like,
Elderly.
I say older.
Sometimes what you
I
do,
resemble that.
if you reach out to them in advance,
And once we get up there, just try to put it out to the
when you reach
neighborhood.
out to them in advance, in my experience, they push the message, right? You talk to them 2 weeks before the civic meeting or a month before the civic league meeting. They start letting people know. Additional people are going to show up because they know somebody's going to be there.
Right.
And so you may get a different dynamic because of that. Otherwise, talk to who's there, and what they're going to do is tell people, hey, Mr. Swinson from the Crime Commission was here. He said he's going to be here next month too, and then next month you'll see
Might
that
get-
it's double
right,
the people in the
for
room
sure.
because they want to hear what you have to say. And even the Commonwealth Attorney's Office go to Civic League meetings. They may not be there the first time,
Right.
but the next time when they realize they get to talk to somebody from the office, they show up.
Yeah.
So we can try that, and then also start with the work on getting some civic leagues reestablished, the ones that we see that we're missing, so that we can start there.
I believe in February or either January, I had asked if someone could find out when all of the civic league meetings are happening, if we could compile.
I think it's online though, right?
It's on the city website.
Yeah, who the president is and what day they meet.
Yeah, and there's
Yeah.
contact information.
Yep.
Okay, so I think it would be starting off there and doing some outreach to see what meetings we can go to first. And like you said, I think that's a great start with going into the community and going to them first before we decide to host separate meetings. I think that's a great start.
And I think like for those areas like South Side, London Oaks, those places we can utilize, just connect with like the property manager and see if we can utilize their space or.
Yeah, utilize their space, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we
And
could
then
get
we
some.
have to have some type of food or something, snacks, not necessarily like a.
Do you have a budget?
Nobody has said
There is
anything.
no,
Everything's
there is
pro
no
bono.
budget. I think that
Chips and
Ms.
water,
Matthews and I will have a discussion
You have
about
to have
what it looks like to
something.
possibly have some
Where they're not
snacks
gonna come back
or
and
some
talk
United.
to us.
But there is no specific budget for the task force.
Okay.
But that will come with doing work possibly, but.
Our ask.
I don't know if that ask at that meeting, but I think that'll come with some conversations for sure. But to your point, it has to be a way to get people there, especially young people.
But to be honest, we could like consult with like, let's say we want like Domino's. Let them know, hey, we're the crime commission, we're trying to decrease crime in our city. We're having a meeting out London Oaks. Would you be able to donate
And
7 pieces?
that's a fair point. I think it comes with building partnerships with folks in the community, and folks may donate and want to
Somebody else
donate
has to go ask.
food and snacks for our meetings that we're having in the community. And so if that's something, Ms. Sessoms, that you would like to,
I think we can get buy-in from the community on that.
okay.
Yeah.
So is that something you would like to take on building those partnerships to get snacks? And it sounds like it. It sounds like it.
I can support that.
Okay,
Just let me know what the first meeting is.
got you. It sounds like we had meshed some of these conversations into one, all three of our discussion items, which is perfectly fine, and I figured that would happen. The next thing was the report that is due to City Council. We kind of talked about that at the beginning, but just to circle back to that, I'm going to ask for all of our committee chairs to send over updates on the work that has been done so far, any work, whatever that looks like for your committee, by, just had the date pulled up, May 23rd at the latest. I would like it earlier. If you can send it over to Ms. Matthews and copy everybody on the commission and the task force onto that email as well. So again, those are updates on what has taken place so far in that committee. Also your goals in that committee and the way you see the work going forward in alignment with the rest of the work we're trying to do as a task force. And so all of that should be included inside of that report, and I will work with Ms. Matthews to put the full report together to submit to City Council that following week. Are there any questions about that?
I feel like we need to reconvene before that meeting, even if it's on a Zoom.
We do, and we need to go over the
I think that's,
reporting section of the bylaws
Do
to
like a
make sure
workshop?
that everybody is clear before the,
Go ahead.
so a work
Do like a workshop.
session?
Yeah.
Session, yeah.
yeah, because before they submit reports, or we submit reports to you, we need to be clear on what the report needs to entail. So that way you don't have to sift through that and trying to compile it together. And you're not compiling something that's not what we need. Because I see that most people don't remember what this says. So we need to,
Okay.
Bylaws.
yes.
So if we're all in agreement, we're having a second work session scheduled for the month of May. And it would probably be the week of the 26th. I'll work with Ms. Matthews to get a date confirmed for sure. But we're all in agreement for that, correct?
Can it be
As long as
via
it's early
Zoom?
in the week.
have to be in person?
No, it does not have to be in person.
Well, we can work it out.
Yeah, so we'll get that. We'll get that scheduled.
It just has to be posted 5 days in advance, is that right? For
Yes, it has to be communicated to the public 5 days in advance that the meeting is happening, and we have to make sure there's minutes taken. And we'll figure that out just like we did in February as
And the
well.
last Monday of the month is Memorial Day.
Yes, correct, correct. All right. Committee updates. We met 2 weeks ago. I'm going to assume
Yeah.
that there are no committee updates, but I would like to ask, just in case, are there any committee updates?
I do not. My
Yes.
only for data and metrics is that we had 3 new members last week. We have 2 more, so now we're at 6. So I think I'm good for now.
Okay,
But that's my only update.
okay. Thank you.
Ms. Patillo, if I can, I know I was late in sending this to you, but as a member of that committee, I pulled some data from the
Okay.
data resource guide.
We got 7 people.
Yeah, oh, good. Well, or you can stick with your 6. And so I pulled data from the Department of Juvenile Justice Data Resource Guide and sent it to you. And it was because I know the Bloomberg study stopped at 21, 22. And I started to really get into the weeds when I started to pull it out. So I only pulled what I had from 2024, but specifically I pulled out all the petitions that were filed against juveniles in the city and what the offense was for. Youth that were placed on probation, what those offenses were for. Youth that were committed, what their offenses were. And then I did notice that, interestingly enough, the assessment that the Department of Juvenile Justice uses to assess risk for all of the kids involved with the court, the YAZI, it's a uniform assessment. The state average showed like 20 to 30% of the youth that complete the YAZI are at high risk, and there's a lot of static and dynamic information in there. But in Portsmouth, our numbers were through the roof. We were much, much higher. So I think that speaks to sort of what we already know. But I thought it was interesting, and you can go back through. I sent you the link. You can go back through and pull for each year, because that's just a starting point, right? But I think that will help us fine tune what some of our goals are as far as big picture goals. Do we specifically, like 2 years, there were 5 youth that were charged with murder. But there were this many youth that were charged with armed robbery, for example. So I think that will help us get some more interesting things for someone who works in the field all the time. I know that in 20 and 2021, there weren't any charges being filed. And so the numbers are going to look very different than what they did before.
Yeah.
So.
And that's good. A lot of that stuff came across my desk and the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, so it is interesting to read. I always read the comprehensive reports and stuff like that, so that is key for our data, especially since we've already discussed that we're coming from an approach of the youth, since that's a major portion of the crime, so very helpful. Thank you.
Are you able to share that out with everyone?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
And
Thank
it
you,
might be
Mr.
good. I'm not like, it might be good because I know that I speak that language and I fall into that like ABC lingo of juvenile justice, but there might be a time or a place where it would be appropriate to have some of those slides and sort of
Yeah.
walk folks
And
through
I think
it.
we talked about that at a previous meeting that we
Absolutely.
brought up to the
Yeah.
last meeting, I believe, the one before that. Yeah.
So
that can be a data and metrics presentation at some point.
Sure.
As we get to the time where we're approaching some of the maybe youth programs or interventions that we talked about and why those things are necessary.
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't, I wasn't falling into the gobbledygook of juvenile justice speak.
Oh,
and
no.
other people weren't aware.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Ms. Ray. Thank you, Ms. Patillo. Any other comments on committees? Questions about committees? Seeing none. Just a reminder, is the June 9th joint meeting with City Council that's scheduled right now. That's our next meeting that is scheduled, but I will work with Ms. Matthews to get the work session scheduled, and we'll send that information out and make sure that everybody is present and is aware. And that work session will be to make sure that we are in alignment with the report being submitted to City Council. Any questions?
Yeah, my email still doesn't work.
That was going to be my next thing. Was asking.
And where did you send it?
Email address is anyone still having trouble with their email
My
account
email doesn't work.
other than me?
I will try again. I have not tried in a couple of weeks, but I will try again.
Okay.
So was we supposed to do something?
So Ms. Matthews told me earlier today that if we log in using Safari or Google Chrome, it should work, but we can't use the mobile Outlook app or application on our phones to do it. However, I was kicked out all the way, so the
I
city.
haven't had a problem, and I've been using the Outlook app consistently.
And it's still working for
I'm
you?
gonna knock on wood.
Okay. Seems like it's some mixed things. So I'll work with Ms. Matthews to get that solved because I want to make sure we're able to communicate and that we're getting things, because she had to share the agenda and the meeting minutes to my personal email account. And one of our first discussions that we had back in November and December was making sure we wasn't mixing our personal accounts. And so I want to make sure we're not continuing to do that and we're following guidelines. We'll get that taken care of. Any other comments, questions?
George, do you have a city email account yet?
No, sir.
Yeah, Ms. Matthews is working on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
We'll make sure you get one. All right. All right. If there aren't any other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
A second.
Second, the motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.